February 2024. Police find a dead body in front of an alley that has the words "digital only rules" painted on it. And to think, I was one more shift from retiring. Guess the wife and a vacation to Tahiti's gonna have to wait. I've got a case to solve. Police have picked up 3 suspects, and something tells me none of them are gonna give. Well, we'll see about that. While a rare breed of games, there has been a rampant increase in games that release digitally first and then get a physical release later. Usually reserved for smaller games like Axiom Verge and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, many AAA games have taken the approach of digital first, physical later. Alan Wake and Baldur's Gate 3 being some good examples, games that when released had no physical presence on shelves but would later appear with the deluxe edition or etc. Of course, you have a wide variety of games that just never release physically, usually small or indie games, with physical games becoming something of a premium club you have to be a big enough deal of to enter. Digital-only games have been around for a while, with it gaining popularity in the Xbox Live Arcade days, in which those games were often looked upon as lesser for not being physical AAA games.
Who's laughing now?
Ever since around the 7th generation of gaming, digital marketplaces for games have become an industry norm. But you see, digital marketplaces for games go way back to the Atari days, with a little service called GameLine. GameLine, made by CVC, who would later become AOL, was this cartridge you got for the Atari 2600 that you would put a battery in, plug into your phone line, and then through the power of dark, mystic arts, the game would download onto your Atari. With that, you were about to experience the true future of digital-only gaming. Except you had to buy the cartridge for $60, subscribe to the GameLine membership to use the service which costed $15, and each game costed $1 to download, and you only kept the game for a week, which back in 1983 costed... But it was worth it because you got to play Egomania without having to go to the store. While GameLine didn't take off, it did set the stage for a little thing called the freaking internet, which you might have heard a thing or two about. However, other gaming companies were inspired by the GameLine, and many other platforms all had their own butchered versions of digital marketplaces, like Nintendo with the Satellaview and Sega with the Sega Channel. None of these really took off and changed the landscape of gaming forever, but you know what did? Hey, you know who's calling? Yeah, it's your friend Steam. Steam originally started out as a way for Valve to update its published games, but soon turned into something else entirely. Half-Life 2 was the first game released on Steam, and from there more and more games got added until today, everybody and their grandma uses Steam. Around the time of Steam's rise though, we had the release of the 7th generation of gaming, and with it the beginning of digital game storefronts for consoles. The Xbox 360 and PS3 had relatively similar storefronts, allowing you to download digital-only smaller games and full retail games. They also allowed you to buy and download full media files like music and movies, so you could finally watch Year One on your Xbox 360. However, the bystander in all of this was of course Nintendo, who had the Wii Shop channel where you can download full retail games, but instead things like WiiWare games and Virtual Console, allowing you to play older Nintendo games digitally. Each respective console storefronts would change, whether it through updates or shutdowns, to what we have today with the Microsoft Store, PlayStation Store, and Nintendo eShop. All pretty much being the same, with almost any game released for the system being found on it. Digital gaming storefronts are the main way people buy games nowadays, and can you blame them? It's incredibly convenient to just go to the store tab, buy the game, and start downloading it, especially if you have something like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. Compared to driving to the store, finding the game you want, buying the game, driving back to your house, and still having to download the game. And you gotta fucking talk to the, Walmart dude to be like your mommy and go unlock the game case for you. I hate it, it's fucking stupid. Plus, it's more convenient to have a bunch of digital games installed instead of having to get up and switch discs and everything. Overall, a big reason why physical gaming is dying and why digital gaming storefronts are huge is convenience, but that's not the only reason. So, we got your friend. Digital-only games to finally spill, and yet you three say you have nothing to do with the death of physical gaming? I call malarkey. However, I don't think you're the only ones behind this. I think there's a much bigger hand controlling you fellas. And I think I better go have a word with them.
Happy Easter, Xbox.
I think if there was ever a final nail in the coffin for physical gaming, it was the start of digital-only consoles. I think digital-only consoles are really weird. When looking at the history of digital-only consoles, it just doesn't make any sense. The trend started as the death rattle of the 8th generation console. Xbox One S All Digital was the first digital-only console for Microsoft and was released in 2019. It was $250 and came with 3 games, which I guess you could say maybe justified the price, but really you could find an Xbox One S, which had a disc drive, for like $150 used, so this never made any sense. However, Microsoft would make up for this fumble by releasing the Xbox Series S day and date with the Xbox Series X. For not $50 off, not $100 off, but a whopping $200 off of the Series X's price tag. And the Series S goes on sale all the time, which makes picking it up for $250 a straight up crime. Of course, the Series S isn't this cheap just because it's an all digital console, it's also because it's a piece of shit. But overall, I love the Series S. As someone who isn't constantly playing the latest games, it's really nice to have a cheap way of playing current gen games without having to pay $500. And while it does suck losing the feature of being able to use discs on the console, I feel like in this case the price does justify what you are sacrificing, which is also a lot of fucking horsepower. Now the PS5 is a similar case, but kinda makes more sense. The PS5 Digital was released the same day as the PS5 and was $100 less. Just as powerful as the actual PS5, all that's missing is the disc drive, which for $100 less is fine and probably completely worth the sacrifice of losing the ability to use discs. Now, why isn't there a disc drive on the PS5 Pro and you have to buy an external one? You should probably ask the Buddha. I think the Buddha, would be able to answer that.
So, Buddha.
Overall, I think I'm very conflicted on digital-only consoles. On one hand, I think it's really great that there are cheaper alternatives for people to access the next generation of gaming, especially with something like the Series S. Digital-only consoles also just make sense. We live in a digital world and mostly everybody just buys their games digitally now, so what's the point in including a disc drive? On the other hand, it sucks giving so much control to big corporations and relying on digital storefronts to give fair prices on games instead of having the wide variety of different ways to buy a physical game. I've been doing a lot of thinking. We found 3 suspects linked to the scene of the crime, and we got nothing. I got one more lead. Let's go see what we can dig up.
Spaghetti.
Gaming today is pretty much a digital-only medium. Think of the last time you saw a physical PC video game. You can't. You know why? Because of Steam. I haven't bought a physical game in so long. Whenever I'm in a video game aisle at a store, I walk around that bitch like I'm Ferris Bueller at the art museum. Physical games have also just become worse and worse over time. A big reason you bought a game physically was so that you didn't have to wait for it to download. You could just pop it in and start playing. Didn't even need an internet connection. Nowadays, anytime you buy a physical game, chances are it's going to require some sort of download. Physical gaming has simply just fallen from grace. What used to be the way to play video games has now become really the only way to prove that you actually kinda own a video game. Physical gaming will always have a place in my heart, and in an entirely digital world we live in now, there will always be something unique about being able to look at the cool little tidbits in the manual, or look at the back, or the way the discs looks. Also, why the fuck were the Wii U discs so fucking soft? After talking to the mother of the victim, turns out, the Vic died of old age. Huh, who would have thought? I guess he was pretty old. Whatever, it's about time I get back to the missus, just in time for that flight to Tahiti.
I'm wearing dark glasses today because I'm seeing the future and it's looking very bright.